There's been an air of anticipation in the Star Wars and strategy communities this week with the news drop of Star Wars Zero Company. Labeled as a Star Wars turn-based strategy game, it's been met with excitement, resentment, and even outright dismay at the upcoming title from BitReactor in Electronic Arts. However, we now have a trailer, a Steam page with some screenshots, and several press beats on details, and I have to say, labeling this as a XCOM in a galaxy far, far away sounds like a daggum good time to me. Hello everybody, this is Havoc, and today we'll take a brief look at what we know about Star Wars Zero Company, from its storyline to its characters, and what we might expect from the game as a whole based on public information revealed just hours ago. If you enjoy this type of content, let me know by giving the video a like, commenting down below. Let's dive in, starting with Zero Company's story, the end of the Clone Wars. Star Wars Zero Company takes place at, quote, the twilight of the Clone Wars, although the exact details are unknown beyond that. You won't be engaging in the massive battles of the TV series or the movies, rather, you'll be tackling the secret ops side of things, behind closed doors and in dark regions of the galaxy. You'll be taking control of Hawks, a former Republic officer in charge of an elite squad, to face a looming threat over the galaxy. What that threat may be is anyone's guess. It could be that Hawks' own story includes resentment towards the Republic and sees the danger of Palpatine, or perhaps a secret CIS weapon that could devastate entire Republican worlds. The key word here is former Republican officer, which means he's outside of the authority and jurisdiction of his station, a renegade. He's joined by an equally mystic and eclectic crew of characters, a witty and veteran clone soldier named Trick, anti-Republican shooter Luco Bronk, a Mandalorian gunslinger Clyde Culervo, and a Jedi Padawan named Tell. And already you can start to see specializations amidst your typical turn-based shooter genre, your sniper, your support, heavy tank role, etc, etc. How these characters all end up together is again something we will no doubt discover along the storyline, as there is obviously a lot of tension amidst this ragtag crew with a lot of history you could speculate purely from a lore perspective. So we have our setting and our crew, but what about gameplay? XCOM meets Star Wars. It's hard to get away from the XCOM model when it comes to turn-based tactics. As one of the most popular series in the genre, there's so much that works well, and it's hard not to mimic the gameplay loops and mechanics. And there are several similarities. The gameplay loops has you sending out your crew to various missions, allowing you to customize them based on the mission at hand, from appearances, loadouts, and skills to leave you best prepared for success. Post missions, you'll return to Zero Company's base on the Ring of Kafrene, where you will no doubt be able to engage in research, upgrade weapons, expand your base, level up your characters, and probably engage in some socializing, not to mention recruit more people for other missions. Looking at screenshots and the brief look into combat in the trailer, combat works similarly, focusing on cover, terrain, and the combination of abilities and movement to change your strategy in reaction to the forces you engage with. Obviously, there are some very classic Star Wars tropes that I'm very excited to play with. I imagine gunslingers have some fantastic close range accuracy or the ability to lay down some suppressive fire. Hawks looks to be able to gather intel on the fly to relate to teammates. Tell is a daggum Padawan with all the Jedi abilities and a lightsaber, and we cannot forget about the Mandalorian. Being able to fly around the map to gain some terrain advantages sure does seem handy. Then there's the opposition. There are potential adversaries aplenty, although all we see in the trailer are CIS droids. If we have the ability to recruit such characters from around the galaxy, I wonder what all we'll be fighting against. Could we go up against Genosians, who can also fly? Will we see the likes of the Hutts in our missions? Will we see canon Star Wars characters, and will they even technically be enemies or allies? There's so much potential to get lesser played Star Wars species out into a game like this, and I hope that BitReactor and EA can see that potential and create a unique experience in this area. But one of the more unique game aspects comes in the form of character development. XCOM meets Knights of the Old Republic. I'm more than happy to hear that we can recruit and customize other characters in Zero Company. One of the larger concerns out in the community was the inability to hire anyone else, and that this ragtag group would have so much plot armor that they could never truly die. And indeed, knowing they can potentially die makes them that much more valuable, thus wanting to save them for certain missions. Yet there's another reason for keeping this specific group alive, and even playing them in missions together. As you progress in the game and discover more about who they are and who they're becoming together, you can start to form bonds with the core characters, improving their relationships with one another to the point where you can have the potential to change their fate. Will we see Order 666 trigger in the game? But due to that tight bond, the clone trooper ignores it, refusing to kill his Padawan friend? Will the anti-Republican character see past the formalities of the Jedi or the clone trooper and in turn help the Republic to fight this unknown threat? This potential for story-changing relationships changes your strategy, wanting to keep them alive, but wanting them to progress in the same breath. It'll be interesting to see how we can use them to form these relationships and how it will indeed shape the game as a whole. With all this in mind, I have some thoughts on Zero Company. Overall, I'm impressed that we appear to be getting an actual turn-based strategy, XCOM style game out of it. There have been a handful of instances where, quote, strategy games end up being pay to win by these big, huge developers or other relatively garbage style mashups that can barely be tied to the genre. While we only have a single trailer with just 20 seconds of gameplay, it does ring that TBT bell quite soundly, and considering the time and the setting, we should get a lot of variation in gameplay. You really just cannot go wrong with the loop that XCOM is known for, and I'm satisfied with that approach. The added relationship feature that could change the outcome of some characters is immensely appealing to me as well. Knowing my actions could alter the fate of some characters means that replayability is massive here. Any player who chooses even one thing I do not could have a much different ending, and that's a fantastic feature for this game. As with any company that dips into one of my favorite genres, I am of course excited with an air of cautious anticipation. We don't know details, and the details will 100% make or break this game. If the game has a limited pool of characters to pull from, or we're only ever facing CIS droids, that'll get old really fast, especially because the lore is just so daggum deep with this IP. Hopefully both Bit Reactor and EA see the value in providing us with tons of options here, especially with appearances and customizations within the character types. There is so much potential, and I hope they can deliver on it. Thank you so much for watching this video on Zero Company. Feel free to support it by giving the video a like, and let me know what you think by commenting down below. Zero Company has a 2026 release date, so there's still plenty of time to find out more. Stay tuned on the channel for more videos like this in the future. This is Havoc, and I'm out of here.